Hello, it's Tracy Jackson, also known as a spiritual cheerleader, and I wanted to come back to do the complete review for the Kuan Yin Transmission book that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago. I finished it earlier in the week, so like I said, I pretty much devoured this in a little less than 2 weeks. But this book is amazing. I loved it mainly because I have been wanting to know more about the deities that have been described in this book in depth, and this book gave me exactly what I wanted. So when I spoke to you on my mid book review, I was in the middle of learning about the different variations of Kuan Yin that you could, speak to, or the 33 forms. And Alana mentions that the 33 forms, it's symbolic. It doesn't mean that there's not, more forms of Kuan Yin, but these are the forms of Kuan Yin that are, it's a symbolic number that represents her nature as kind of an ascended master or whatever. But there's millions of forms, right? There's millions of forms of Kuan Yin. And I was midway through those forms of Kuan Yin. I read about the rest of those different versions, learning not only about those versions of Kuan Yin, but when I could call on those versions of Kuan Yin, or when those versions of Kuan Yin show up. And that was because of the beautiful examples that Alana put forth. I then, went into learning about, Tara, the various versions of Tara: green, black, orange, red, yellow, white, and really learned about the various variations, because I had really only been familiar with green and white Tara. I knew that there were other versions and colors of Tara, but I had no idea, what they related to or anything. Like yellow Tara is very closely, we could kind of think of her as an emanation of Lakshmi. Like she and Lakshmi have basically the fairly same characteristics. They're both kind of the abundance, prosperity goddesses. And the orange Tara is like Sekhmet from the Egyptian tradition. So like it's black Tara is like Kali. So it's those things that kind of bridge between the two different traditions that I love, and I love learning about that. So I was able to learn more about, obviously, Kuan Yin, Tara, the Cosmic Madonna, which I loved that section. Obviously grew up Christian, very familiar with Mother Mary, but not familiar with Mother Mary in the sense that I would say maybe like Catholics are familiar with Mother Mary. Obviously, growing up Baptist, the main focus of our worship is Jesus. We revere Mary in the sense that she had Jesus as her son, but we don't revere Mary in the sense of like praying to her or speaking to her or anything in relation to like revering her in the way that we revere her son. I love this book for not only kind of teaching me how I could get in contact with her, because I've always felt a pull to her just because of my Christian upbringing, but I've kind of felt somewhat detached from her because of the way that my Christian upbringing was. I was more focused on her son, right, than her. And in this book, Alana has a couple of she has a mantra. She has obviously the Hail Mary prayer. I never learned that because I'm not Catholic, so it was nice to like see it in here and to actually pray it and be able to use it. So that was really, really cool. Moving on to learning more about Isis and her story. I feel like since she's my girl, I love her to death. Love her. Like our cards of the week. But I love her so much that I feel like I knew everything there was to know about Isis, and Alana, brought some new things into my being. I love the meditation that she has for Isis. Not only the song, the music that she has, but also the actual meditation. It's amazing. And then in the second part of the book, after learning about Isis, also learned about Kali. Learned a lot more about Kali than I knew. Everything that I always heard about Kali, I always heard about her in the sense of her being birthed from Durga's, like the sweat of Durga's brow, like she was kind of like came out to like slice up the demons or whatever. And I knew that story of her, but I didn't ever really recognize like who she was supposed to have been married to, and like her nurturing qualities. Most times when we hear about Kali, we hear about the fierceness of Kali, but we don't necessarily hear about that nurturing part. And Alana really kind of fleshed that out a little bit more. There's another book by Sally Kempton that does that as well, and I think it's Awakening the Kali. But those two books are like the only ones that I've kind of encountered that have kind of shown me a different side to Kali, a side that really endears her to me, rather than making me fearful of her, because so many people are fearful of her. And I was always fearful of her when I first heard of her, because I was like, people were like, oh, if you're gonna, bring Kali in, like, you better be ready. Like, she's fierce. She's gonna cut stuff down. Like, you only ask for her if you really want her to come in and wreck shop. And like, I don't feel that way with her. I feel like she's like a mama bear, and like when I need her, I can call on her. And I don't have to be afraid of her. I don't have to be afraid of what she's gonna, cut down, because what she's cutting down is what I don't need, right? But a lot of people, I feel like we have fear around her because we fear that she's going to take something away that we want. And that's just not after reading this and reading other books on her, that's not who she is. Kali takes away what we don't need. Now, we might want it, but we don't need it. Right? So I love her. And that this book really endeared her to me more. I absolutely loved the second half of the book. The second half of the book talks about purification, alignment, and activation healing practices that you can do. It also goes into depth about mantra mudras that you can use to kind of bring in the energy while you are saying the mantras or praying to these particular deities. But I really liked that whole section, or the whole emphasis of the second section on the purification, alignment, and awakening activation sections, because it made complete sense to me, even though I've never really done it. A lot of people on the spiritual path are, we know about smudging and we know about purification and we purify our space, but a lot of times we don't purify ourselves. Like, we don't try to make sure that we are clean energy to accept whatever we are invoking, whatever we're praying for, whatever the petition is. And one of the things that I've always heard when trying to receive is that you have to make space, because as you make space, you basically are creating a vacuum, and something else has to come to fill that space. Well, purification is just that. You're cleaning that space. You're getting that stuff out so that you can kind of create that vacuum to allow whatever needs to come in and you to receive it. So her kind of going through this purification process with us and really emphasizing the need for purification was really, really something that I appreciated and liked learning. I will say, just for all of those who might be coming from a tradition like mine, Christianity, that's very condemning and very very much in the realm of associating purification with spotlessness or blamelessness or, you know, without sin. Let's say that. Like, this is not that type of purification. This purification is clearly removing just like the negative energy off of you. It's not saying, it's not like making a declaration on you to, you know, be without sin, or, you know, like, we're not even getting into that. It's really about clearing out your energy so that you are prepared to receive. It's not about, you know, making a judgment call on who you are as a person, and therefore you need to do this purification process so that you can receive. No, it's, I'm trying to clear out the energy that's not working for me so that I can open up to receive what will work for me, type thing. So the purification process was amazing. The alignment processes were really informative, in the sense that many of us are on this path, and we feel like we can feel when we're out of alignment. We can feel when things like just feel like and like we feel not where we're supposed to be. And having practices to kind of put you back on that path, put you back on and into alignment with your higher power, is something that's super, super helpful. There's a couple of practices that she puts in here. She calls them like deity yoga, which I like that whole idea as well. And moving from there, you go to the activation portion, where you activate. And typically, like in the activation portion, it's really like the heating up portion of things. Activations are not necessarily anything to be taken lightly. They usually are kind of an initiation of sorts. And so when you're activating the energy of the Divine Mother, or any really spiritual being in your life, it can, you know, cause some energy, some things to shift in you. And so like, you should be prepared for that. It's nothing to be scared of, again, because it's going to clear stuff out to allow stuff in, but it's also going to move some things around in you. Like, it might bring up things that you are like, what the heck? I thought I had dealt with this before. And so it's something to be prepared for. It's not something to be scared of. But it's one of those things where it brings stuff up so that it can be released and you can move forward, right? So like I said, really loved this. Really loved the second half of my read, because I got more information about Kuan Yin, Tara, Isis, Kali, and the Cosmic Madonna that I just did not know. And I loved really getting deep into certain stories and learning about things that I had already heard about, like people and places and things that I'd already heard about, but learning these various variations on stories about them that for whatever reason I glossed over, didn't hear, wasn't paying attention, whatever. Like the instance that I think of in this deck, the Divine Feminine Oracle, there is a woman in here called Catherine Labouré, who was a nun in the order of St. Vincent de Paul. And she was someone who had a vision of Mother Mary, you know, kind of basically splayed out with rays of, you know, light around her, and like there were certain rays that didn't touch the ground, and she asked like, what are those rays? And Mother Mary told her those were the graces that people hadn't asked for. And so the card in her essence symbolizes the need for us to ask for prayers from, you know, our higher power, whatever it is, because there's all of this energy ready and willing and able to help us if we would just ask for it, right? So I knew about that. in this deck, Megan says, you know, and that was, you know, made into a miraculous metal, whatever. I've read it a million times. I read this book. I start hearing about this lady, Catherine, who's a nun, and I'm like, this story sounds kind of familiar. And then they're like, and they make these miraculous metals. And I was like, wow, interesting. I didn't know. And I was like, oh, that's the same Catherine Labouré. I didn't know they did a miraculous metal. I didn't know she did miraculous metals. It's in there. I just, for whatever reason, my consciousness wouldn't take it in at the time. So it did not make an impression on me when I was reading about it in here. But when I read about it in here, I started looking up miraculous metals and all this stuff. I also learned that Catherine Labouré was incorruptible. Had no idea. That wasn't in there, but I didn't know. Okay? And so I ended up looking up Catherine Labourè's incorruptible body, which is actually still in the monastery which she served in, and that was also very interesting. But I learned about, you know, like I said, little tidbits about people that I hadn't really seen before, and I think a lot of that happened because I basically was ready and willing to commune with the Divine Mother. I was ready to learn what the Divine Mother wanted to teach me. Whereas, you know, with this oracle deck, this oracle deck basically prepared me. It was preparing me for all that was coming, right? And helping me to see and get kind of in line. But this, it came at the perfect time where I was able and willing to accept what it was telling me. So I highly recommend this book. Highly recommend getting the CD that goes with it as well. Like I mentioned, I think in the past, the Google Play Store has the MP3 for, I think, $12.87, which is the cheapest I've found it. And it has all of the music, all of the meditations on it. I have done about 3 of the different meditations. I've done the one with Isis, done the one with Tara, and just did the one with Kuan Yin earlier in the week, which was amazing. I have listened to all of the music, which has now become kind of how I start my day, part of my daily ritual. I love listening to the music. And I like sing the songs with Alana, which is really, really cool, because I'm speaking to the deities as well. I, again, highly recommend both the book and the CD. I am probably about to get the healing activation cards that also coincide with all of this, just because I am feeling like I want more and want to commune more with Kuan Yin. I've been using my Kuan Yin Oracle and my Wild Kuan Yin Oracle, also by Alana Fairchild, a lot more, just because I've learned so much about Kuan Yin. I have like this new love for her that I didn't have before, and so I highly recommend this book and the CD if you are wanting to learn more about the deities I mentioned, or just to commune more with the Divine Mother. Obviously, in our spiritual traditions, many of us in the religious traditions that we grew up in, it was very male focused and masculine dominated. As I mentioned, you know, my upbringing focused heavily on Jesus. Not to say that I don't love Jesus, because I love that. I love Jesus. Jesus is my boy. But I didn't really get to love on the feminine deity as much, and this was just, it was like a warm hug. That's what I'm saying. It was like a warm hug. And I really appreciate it. I thank Alana Fairchild for even writing this book and for creating the transmission. I actually want to take this activation and program healing in this healing modality from her. And I thank her for creating the CD and the cards as well. So hope that helps you. Hope you have a great week. Hope that you enjoy the Kuan Yin transmission as much as I do. Talk to you soon. Bye. Feel free to subscribe and do all that other good stuff too. All right. Bye.